Do you see potential for economic progress that also improves human and animal nutrition in countries with some of the fastest growing populations in the world? Do you want to partner to find solutions for the protein gaps found in Africa, Asia, and Central America? If you can join us in capturing business opportunities in nutritious foods and feeds, then stay tuned. Vision.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we've had a 5-minute delay, but I think all is good and we are still on track. So this is the second session for the day, and we are going to have a presentation on regional reports. The main speaker for this session is going to be Madam Faruke Ariola. She is going to do most of the talking, if I may say so. In order for us to move on with time, I'm going to share her profile in the chat space so that we don't delay in going on, because she's already spoken before and most of us know her very well. So I will share her profile in the chat space, and as she goes on, we can all be reading about her and her enormous work and contributions that she's done to aquaculture in West Africa. So without much ado, I have to introduce myself all over again. My name is Nestor Latte. I am the Director of Operations for the Chamber of Aquaculture Ghana. So, Madam Faruke, I'd like to say good afternoon to you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, Madam. So, we'll start by giving you the floor to give us a general idea of what you want to take us through. Then we can move on from there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Nestor. Good afternoon, everyone. The Chairman, Chamber of Aquaculture, Dr. Anim Somoa, the World Aquaculture Regional Director, Dr. Sherif Sadek, Chairman of the conference, Professor Francis K. Nono, Head of Department, Marine Fishery Sciences, University of Ghana, the Chief Executive Officer of Chamber of Aquaculture, Mr. Jacob Adzkar. Sorry if I've not pronounced your name very well. All representative of diplomatic missions in West Africa and Africa here present, the Regional Director, Dr. Larry Badmos, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome everyone to the third day of the first hybrid aquaculture conference in West Africa, the theme of which is new strategies to promote inclusion and transparency in aquaculture management of West Africa. The session was planned to be the presentation of regional reports, but to keep in line with diplomatic protocols, we will not be taking the country's presentation today. This is because some countries have not sent in their presentations, and it will not be correct for the organizers to present the reports of some particular countries, while some countries will not be presented. And so what we have planned to do today is to show you what the reports were to be used for and an overview of how to go forward. And then we are all going to also speak to each other about the challenges in the industry. And when I go through what I have in the list, I want to share my screen now and show you the, okay. Now, the reports that we were to collect from the different countries should have been imputed into this report that ought to have been given today. But because many of the countries have not given their reports yet, I'm just going to run through it. It's a review of aquaculture policy in West Africa, challenges and solutions. And it ought to have had the introduction. And where having read is what we will discuss today. That is the policy gaps that has been identified across all the countries through interactions. And it ought to have taken us the objective, the methodology, the treaty, and then inputs from all the countries one by one. And these countries are Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, and Guinea. And then the solutions and recommendations and so on. But because we do not have, because the organizers do not have all the reports, we will be going through the areas in red one by one to discuss the session today. And the introduction that we have, that is the report rationale and definition. We won't go into the definition of this, of some of the key terms, but I will just go through the introduction, which says policies structured to manage small and large aquaculture projects in West Africa do not achieve the expected result because they are often imposed and not negotiated with the stakeholders. The stakeholders who know the real problems faced in the industry are often neglected during policy formulation. Thus, the following policy gaps in the industry is preventing its growth in the long and short-term basis. Before I go on, I want us to be clear that the areas that are the listed gaps from number 1 to 16 that I'm going to discuss today are not my own opinion, and they do not represent the opinion of any country at all. I'm just presenting on behalf of the organizers, and I will try to expatiate on each one of them. And I want everybody here to please take their pens and papers as we discuss each one. Please take note, whether you have comments, whether you have things you want to add, so that when I'm through, because if we should be stopping on each one, we may not finish within the time available for us. So I will quickly run through it, try and do that within an hour, and then the remaining 30 minutes or more than that, you will now tell us what you want to add to the different items. And if there are new items that you want to be brought in, then that will be also be taken, because the organizers are taking notes so that we have a comprehensive report at the end of the day. And I'm told that in a month's time, this report will be available for everyone to have. And so we are starting with the very first gap that was identified across all the 17 states, all the 17 countries in West Africa. Number 1 says policies and laws developed to manage aquaculture projects do not regulate all aspects of the entire value chain. Now, the introductory part has said that policies are not negotiated with stakeholders. Why do we need policies? We need policies because it's going to be, it's part of the governance structure of any economic sector. And any good governance in place must have stakeholders' participation, inclusiveness, transparency. And so if it has been identified that the fisheries and aquaculture policies do not regulate all aspects of the entire value chain, then there's an issue. And from the presentations that we have heard from yesterday and day before, it is obvious that there are some aspects of the value chain that are not regulated at all. And I will want to try and point out some, and it is not all the aspects that are there, and that is why the organizers need you to also add to whatever we have, so that we can have a comprehensive report at the end of the day. For instance, yesterday it was on feed and feed formulation, inputs into feed production, and from the speakers, it's obvious that there are no policies, or the policies that do not encourage fish feed production in West Africa. Many people spoke about the transition, many of the presenters, the transition from importing feed to producing feed, but who is regulating the production of the feed? Do we have enough laboratories to test the feed? Do we have enough extension officers to go out and ensure that the small mills, because we were told yesterday there are many small mills scattered all over the place, different formulae for feed formulation, and even the large factories. How is the regulation affecting them? Do we have the backward integration policy that will ensure that people are producing maize, turn the maize to aquaculture sector, or people who are importing fish into the country are made to invest in aquaculture projects, so that gradually there will be a replacement of importation of fish with fish produced in the region. So we have so many policy laws and so many policies and laws that have been developed that do not regulate the aspect of the entire value chain. Let's take off from production. When we look at production, there are many different production systems, different production methods in the different parts of the region. Some people are well established and they are far on the line, and some countries are just coming up. How are the countries that have developed regulate the aspect of the entire value chain? Let's take off from production. When we look at production, there are many different production systems, different production methods in the different parts of the region. Some people are well established and they are far on the. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yes, but there was an interruption. I was hearing what I have said before, so I had to. Okay, let me just try and go on from where I stopped. So is there a regional integration whereby the countries that are well developed in aquaculture are made to mentor those that are just starting off? Is there a system in place whereby stakeholders have a voice in the country's policy and law formulation and implementation? These are issues that are very important, and I do not see this happening yet. We have so many projects in different countries, but are the stakeholders, are the practitioners, are the people at the first order of governance, are they involved in the management of aquaculture projects in West African region? That is number one. Number two says often they are hardly reviewed, thus are not consistent to meet the demands of the constantly changing society. This is a very interesting point, and it takes me to the recent event that the whole world went through, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic. Some countries, developed countries, were able to cushion the effect for their aquaculture farmers in their countries. Some West African countries said they cushioned this effect, but the farmers are saying the palliatives never got to them. And even that is not it's just an example, but when we really look at the issues, do our laws and regulations change? Do we have it in place that every 2 years, or every 3 years, or every 5 years, do we have periodic review of aquaculture laws in the different states in West Africa to meet the demands of a constant changing society? This is the question that we all must answer today, because when we now come back and I take the points one by one. I will want responses from us so that it will help the report when it is finally produced. For instance, let's speak about the day before, there were a lot of issues about residue on products, about microbial residue management and all that. Since we have had that issue, have there been laws made to meet that demand? I'm not aware that any state for now has taken that lead to make laws to cope with emerging issues. How have we handled the issue of climate change in the aquaculture sector? How have we managed the issue of some new pathogens that are being seen in the growing system? Somebody spoke about lice yesterday in a farm, which has to do with quality issues, which has to do with inspection and monitoring of the farm. So these are the things that we need to speak about, because if we as a region want to move forward and play a major role in the market, in the international market, then we must seriously address all the policy gaps and challenges that are being faced in the sector. And the third point that I have listed here for discussion is that in most areas, especially in French-speaking countries, decrees are used instead of laws to control human actions and farmers' behavior. And my understanding of this is that when it is a decree, and I as a farmer know that if I go left and I'm not supposed to go left, my hand will be caught. It's a decree. The farmer will not be free. The farmer will not be even the first order of governance in fisheries will be difficult to be enforced. And that is interaction between players. Everybody will be careful to take steps. Everybody will be careful of what to do so that they don't fall short of the law and face the penalty. And even where in English-speaking countries you have laws that are in place, are those laws enforced? Do we have the personnel to monitor and ensure compliance to those laws? Those are issues. How is the extension services in the countries? We cannot just go there, the ratio of extension officers to farmers that is expected. Because if we compare that to some of the reports that are already in, to the ratio that we have in those countries, it's just too, there's no room for comparison. It's just too poor. So when you want a person to understand a law or a decree that is going to monitor the activity of that person, it is important that that person is part of putting that law and regulation in place. And I'm asking the World Aquaculture Society and the Ghana Chamber of Aquaculture, who is the major sponsor of this program, to look into this aspect. And so when the report is out, we have to look for how we will do strong advocacy to all the governments in the West African states to ensure that in putting in place aquaculture decrees and laws, the opinion of the farmers are taken into consideration. The fourth one is very interesting because earlier on today, we have spoken about the environment, which is part of the production capital and is not protected in aquaculture laws. There are many issues that we need to discuss when we are speaking about environment. Let's first of all speak about introduction of species from other countries. There's the FAO regulation that says before you introduce any foreign species into any body of water, it must be documented, it must be reported to FAO, because FAO too must be part of the monitoring of the movement of this species from one farm to another. I stand to be corrected if any country is following this protocol. What we have is that people import gametes, import fish seeds from different countries. They import the gametes using deceptive containers, food flask, and they introduce it into their farm. People do a lot of propagation system, and now we have issues with inbreeding, we have issues of emergence of new diseases. They are all coming from somewhere. And the most important thing that has to do with the environment is pollution of our water bodies and the possibility of having issues with our biodiversity in the different water bodies in West Africa. Because when there is indiscriminate discharge of effluents into water systems, and these take with them gametes and so on, are we sure that somebody along the line has not imported genetically modified organisms that we just, with exterminators, that we just be destroying the other fish species within the space just to establish itself? Are we sure that we have not lost our indigenous species, even with the catfish that we are that everybody is crediting Nigeria to? Do we still have the native indigenous catfish protected in any of our water bodies? Or do we still have the native tilapia protected in any waters in Ghana? Do we still have our native fish like the silverfish that was spoken about, the propagation of the silvers, the knife silverfish? Do we have them? Or we have imported gametes of them, and then we have there have been a lot of crossbreeding, and so we do not have that. Do we have a gene bank? It's important that in West Africa there must be a gene bank where we are preserving our indigenous species. These are issues that I will want us to look at. And there are many things about the environment: pollution of our waters, loss of biodiversity, and then the discomfort to other people who are managing the water bodies, who are using the water bodies with us. And so the next thing to discuss is the enforcement of aquaculture regulations. It says the enforcement of aquaculture regulation is largely prescriptive. So it means, well, you must do this, you must do that, you must do that, and there's nobody following up, no incentive from government officials to teach or educate farmers about aquaculture regulations. This point is very, very important. It says no incentive from government officials, and the government officials too, given incentive to even perform their duties. Do they have the basic equipment to go to local communities, to go to places that are far, in terms of security, in terms of protection? And so there are many things until we see aquaculture as an economic sector that needs attention, like oil, like gas, like plant agriculture, then we will keep having issues. I don't see why Africa should be importing fish from anywhere. With the fish that we have in our natural bodies of water, and with the capability and capacity to produce fish. We have the weather on our side, we have the water, we have the fish species, a variety of them that can be propagated, but nothing is being done. So Enforcement of these regulations, you just give the regulations to them. Nobody is going to check if the regulations are being enforced or not. Please excuse me 1 minute. My nose. Okay, my nose. Thank you. So nobody is... Yes.
Madam.
Yes. Yes, yes. I just wanted, thank you so much. Oh, okay. Okay, you want me to, yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. I was on number 5. Enforcement of aquaculture regulations is largely prescriptive. No incentive from government officials to teach or educate farmers about aquaculture regulations. This takes me to the issue of aquaculture communication. Is this being taught at all? Are we aware of aquaculture communication? Are there ways by which farmers know the laws through their local languages? Have there been attempts to translate all our laws that are written in languages that we inherited into our own local languages? We have issues there because there are some words that you will tell a farmer he may not really understand except you do a practical demonstration. And because we do not have enough extension officers, it is not even there. We can't even reach all of them to say this is what we are saying. For instance, when you talk about hazard analysis critical control points in any aquaculture establishment, no matter how large, no matter how small, there must be a leg deep. How do I explain that to somebody in my village? Yes, a leg and a dip. But if I told him that in our local language, dig a small space, put water, this is how you will do your concentration of disinfectant, which you will change every day. And so before you allow anybody to come into your farm, so that in entering your farm, they do not bring something that should not come into your farm from another farm that can infect your fish and cause fish loss, they will understand. So we have the issue of enforcement of regulations. Now, when we talk, well, let me also go back to processing. There have been issues with hydrocarbons residues in smoked fish. The native and most of the people in processing, unlike the aroma of the fish smoked with wood. And so it's been difficult convincing the woman in a remote area not to use a particular type of wood, or not to smoke with wood, or to modify her smoking kiln, or this, because this has been handed over to her over the years. So when you have a law that says from the market, any fish species that we test and has a high level of hydrocarbons on them, I'm trying to use the simplest language as much as possible, because that is what we are trying to teach. On the substance, this is what it will do to your health. This is what it will do to the health of those who are eating the fish. Nobody wants to die, not an African person. That I can assure you of. we all want to live to 120 years of age. The moment it is clear in the head of an African person that there's a health issue and there's the probability of pain and of death, they will run away from whatever it is. And that is a good communication language, without telling lies, just telling things as they are. These hydrocarbons, if you continue taking them, it will cause what we call cancer. And then you tell them what cancer is in the local language, and that is understood. There are so many things and so many aspects of the value chain that if we are to break them down today, node by node, we will not have enough time to get this done. Now, number 6 says, long term of office. I've said that these are not my opinion. They are things gathered from the submission and from phone calls, discussions with representative of countries that were chosen to do the report. When the reports were not ready, we just needed their ideas. And this came from several countries. The long term of office for politicians, causing a slow change in policy perspective. I think this is common across all our states. We have the same people recirculating themselves year in, year out. So new ideas are not coming in. And we spoke about our youth, the need for our youth to come in, the need for our youth to bring in innovations, their own innovations. There was a documentary not too long ago, though it was on fisheries, not on aquaculture, of a lady in Nigeria who helped the father to develop an app by which the father was selling his fish. And so we do the advert, people will place order and they will collect. Those are the things that we need our youth to do in aquaculture, to sit in one place and use their technological innovations to formulate feed, to distribute feed, to do extension services in their local area, so that from the headquarters, extension services and things to be taught to farmers can be communicated to these youth in the local communities, who will now take it upon themselves to teach people in their communities. These are the things we are missing, because the same people are in the office and all they understand are the colonial policies and perspectives. And so we are not introducing new things. I stand to be corrected too, but I know that every country in West Africa, every state is having issues accessing the international market with aquaculture products. Why? Because of certification issues. And why should we have issues with certification? If we are following the rules of management in our farms, that is best practices, if we are documenting what we are doing, most people are doing what they are supposed to do, but are they documenting their daily activities? Do they know that they should document their activities? Do countries have the aquaculture aquaculture plan, aquaculture residue plan? Are some countries even aware there should be an aquaculture residue monitoring plan? There are so many things that, because new people are not allowed to bring in new ideas, and the fact that we have a system where is whatever is said high up there, that everybody says yes, yes, yes to, nobody wanting to confront, or nobody wanting to advocate is a better word. We are putting all these things together, and with the hope that after this conference, the World Aquaculture Society will start the process of advocacy, so that people in power will know that there's a need for a change in ideas, a change in policy perspective to take into consideration emerging issues in the global world. Number 7, which is lack of research funding, those old culture methods are still in use today. Yes, we have research institutes all over the place, but how many of them are well funded? We don't have our philanthropies and our big people who make the numbers when the list of rich people in the world are out funding aquaculture research. In other places, we have organizations, we have foundations funding research. We even have government funding research. Yes, many of our states, we say they have research institutes, they have colleges of fisheries, but how many of these are adequately funded to carry out research? And then what is the orientation of our researchers too? When they have research findings, do they give this out, or are they keeping them on the shelf because they have spent their monies to get this done? Are our farmers too, who need this result, are they enlightened to know that they are in a position to fund aquaculture research, so that whatever comes from it, they themselves will benefit from? And then the old culture methods, we cannot totally go away with the old culture methods, because there are still some places, for instance, where there is no electricity grid. There are still some places, for instance, where it is the old culture methods that will still suffice for now, because if they want to start pumping water, doing that and that, there is no pumping machine, there is no electricity, so that cannot be done. But what is being said here is that our government should, in preserving our old culture, make it easier for the practitioners, not the old method that burdens them and makes them to age and does not give maximum expected productivity to their efforts. Number 8 has to do with lack of specialists in fisheries laws. Fisheries laws are not taught in most aquaculture schools, in most aquaculture schools, and lawyers are often not interested in specializing in fisheries laws. This is quite interesting, because how many laws are being enforced? A lawyer wants to write brief, a lawyer wants to make money. Most fisheries laws are archaic. Most fisheries laws are not being enforced. Most fisheries laws, because there is no monitoring and control in place, you cannot even hold people to it that they have done this. How many people check the flesh of the fish that they are eating to be able to know if they have used antibiotics? We just buy our fish and we cook and eat. Are there people going to check farm by farm to know if the unacceptable or unauthorized antibiotics have been used, or if they have followed the protocol and the withdrawal period has been followed? And so a lawyer does not just want to sit there and expect to just be looking. Whereas in oil and gas, in banking industry, in real estate, things are moving fast. So lawyers are going into where they will have briefs to write. And so we must look inward and encourage fisheries laws to be taught in our universities. It is something we should demand as a group, that it should be in the curriculum, or the curricula for all universities and fisheries colleges, so that there are people who are trained in fisheries laws and what do they look out for. The laws must be stated out. What is what will be done that will mean that you have fallen short of the law are all to be itemized and stated out, not just to give decrees and laws and expect people to just follow it without even the laws being explained to them, or the practitioners being part of the putting of the law in place. And number 9, discrimination. Qualified applicants for positions in the industry are sidelined for candidates with strong political connection. Yes, this is possible where you have government farms. It happens in the private sector, but not to a large extent, because I want to believe that if somebody is an investor, will not just take anybody because of any political position. I'm speaking now from my experience in Nigeria, but I know that in other countries, there may still be strong influence for a farm establishment to take somebody who a senator or a House of Rep or a president or vice president has sent, oh, please employ this person in your industry. This is general across board in all the economic space in Africa. And that is one of the reasons why the development is still very slow, because we are not allowing professionalism to play out in many things that we are doing. Even in getting people employed into international positions, people look at tribe, religion, countrymen before they not looking for competent hands. And so we have issues. When you put somebody there who does not understand the industry and is the person who is high up there taking regional decisions, then we will have issues, or taking national decisions, then we will have issues. So the industry, we need to look at that and ensure that candidates that are even taken into global international appointments are people who will represent us well, people who know the aquaculture industry, not just because they belong to a political group or the other. Number 10 says aquaculture regulations, where they exist, are sometimes difficult to interpret by the relevant stakeholders. I think we have spoken about that, where I use the example of a leg deep, that's as an example, and where I use the example of hydrocarbon residue, use of veterinary drugs in the aquaculture space. And then when you tell a farmer, do not bring in gametes, do not bring in fish that is been told grows faster in another country, have you given the farmer an alternative in your country? Have you, as a government, set up a system whereby the gametes will be brought in officially, it will be monitored, and then fingerlings will be supplied by government? I know of nations that farmers cannot just give each other fingerlings. They cannot even sell it like that. They have people sell fingerlings. They have government. If a farmer wants to try out any experiment, the farmer goes to the government. Okay, I want my fish to be pink. I want my fish to be blue. Can you do an experiment and see if you can get my fish to be blue? And that will be done, and it will be made available to the farmers, because they don't want the biodiversity of their fish species to be affected. But do we have that in West Africa? It's a question for us to consider this afternoon. And the next one is lack of specialized courts to try aquaculture offenses. Like I explained from the beginning, I said all these factors were taken from the different reports and communication with the different states. So we have a bit of repetition. Some lawyers, we have spoken about lawyers, we have spoken about why people are not reading fisheries laws. And so also we have lack of specialized courts to try aquaculture offenses. And this is very important too, because I know that if we can have special courts to try transportation issues, to try people who are not driving according to traffic laws, and we can have specialized laws to try people who are committing labor law infractions. Why can't we have courts that we specialize in trying aquaculture offenses? Then unwillingness from some farmers to adopt new, cost-effective and environmental friendly culture methods will often guarantee better output. Yes. About 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak to somebody not in Nigeria, and we were discussing about farmers and extension service certification. And the person said in his country, most aquaculture farmers do not even allow government officials to visit their farms. So I said, wow, that is a bit, that they are reluctant, to use the correct word, that they are reluctant. And in certification, for instance, there must be scheduled meeting on a scheduled meeting of government officials to inspect what is going on there. So if a farmer is not willing for you to visit his farm, if a farmer is not enlightened enough to know that he needs information, because information and knowledge is key in any business. If you keep your old methods to yourself, with time you will find out that those methods, other people are using better methods and they are achieving better results. So our farmers must be educated. And so we need grassroots education. We need to empower governance at the grassroots. That is the first order of governance. There is a lot of work to be done on the first order of governance, which is interaction among the practitioners. Because if they are not interacting amongst themselves, if they do not belong to any association that is related to aquaculture, then how do you disseminate information to them? I'm aware that in some countries, you must belong to an association that is registered by government under aquaculture if you are practicing aquaculture. That way, at least from meetings, from WhatsApp, most of these associations now use technology in talking to themselves. They exchange ideas. They now know that it is not like before, when the few people started aquaculture in Africa were keeping information, especially the water recirculatory system. People were not ready to share information. It was secretly guided that time. But now it is a different thing. When there's an issue, you see people put it on their WhatsApp page. Oh, on my farm, I noticed something today. This is happening. This is so and so. But that does not mean it is happening in all the states in West Africa. But what I'm saying is that our farmers must be enlightened. Our farmers must be educated. Our farmers must know that they cannot walk alone, that it is when they move together that they can achieve a lot of things. If we train our farmers in clusters on best practices in farms, then from a cluster, they can be exporting their products. From a cluster, they can have marketing strategy. From a cluster, they can manage their farm and prevent incidences of diseases, because everyone is working for the common good of the whole group. The next point is, I'm being mindful of time because I want us to have at least 30 minutes to go through again. Weak institutions making enforcement of aquaculture regulations difficult. I quite agree with this. when we talk about institutions, which is the second order of governance, we find out that most institutions in all the states in West Africa, they're under Federal Ministry of Agriculture, they're under one Ministry of Agriculture or the other. Can't all states have the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture? Because by the time you have to take your project through another person to another person, before it even gets to the legislative arm of government, it has been watered down, or you have even been completely removed, or what you are asking for is not under consideration. The institutions are weak. The administrative institutions are weak. The research institutions are weak. The university institutions are weak in aquaculture. So how do we strengthen this? If we don't have institutions, how are the meta order governance translated by the institutions to the first order governance? So we have serious issues with institutions. And how do we strengthen our institutions? Through capacity building, through training, through collaboration. If Ghana has strength in this area, let Ghana share the strength with Cote d'Ivoire. If Togo has strength in this area, let Togo share the strength with Nigeria. Let's start as professionals. Let's start working together, networking, sharing ideas, sharing research results, looking for ways to improve aquaculture generally, so that when we have the next conference, it is going to be a different conference of reporting what we have achieved from a baseline that we have formed with this hybrid conference. And number 14, illiteracy. Difficult for some farmers to interpret aquaculture regulations. Yes, we've spoken about that before, and that has to do with aquaculture communication. It has to do with extension service. It has to do with the responsibilities of the farmers to themselves, to belong to associations, of them wanting also to know, and of our different levels of government, the high, the middle, and the local government levels, so that they too, we should try and educate everyone so that we can maximize the natural resources that we have. I wasn't quite happy when the truth was spoken day before, when somebody said, oh yes, in Ghana we make use of our water bodies, but that there are large water bodies in Nigeria and it's just there. It was the truth, but it's a truth that was painful, because the water bodies are there. All we need to do is utilize them. All we need to do is have co-management arrangements so that other users of the water body will understand what is expected of them that can impact negatively on aquaculture businesses along the river course or the water course. And then we'll be able to even grow more fish in cages, in pens, and so on. And 15, tradition, customs in Africa society. The opinions of women and children are not often considered in stakeholder meetings and workshops, making it difficult for government to clearly capture the real problems faced in the industry. We spoke a bit about this on Monday, when we discussed women and youth in aquaculture, redressing the gender imbalance and the way forward. When we are traditions and customs, we still have a lot to do to liberate our women, to liberate us, because the large majority of women who are practicing in rural communities do not have a say at all in the management or in whatever is going on in their communities. Well, for some levels, we have few women who have become presidents of associations, president, like the one we had yesterday was president of Ghana aquaculture industry. And I was so impressed because she's so down to earth. And so she's not just up there, she's taking care of the women at the grassroots level. But the women, they don't, when you look at all the associations, at least few that I know in few countries, they are usually male presidents, chairmen, and so on. We spoke about the 30% inclusion of women. Has that been accepted? Has that even become a policy in most of the African states? So it's making it difficult. And the issue of child labor too. In some farms, children help their families. That is different from child labor. But we have some people who still employ children to work on aquaculture farms in rural areas. Those are the things to the detriment of the children going to school. So that the things we still need to work about. There are a lot of gaps that we need to work on. And when the report is out, I hope all this will be captured. And lastly, what I was given, the 16th point that I was given, is poor use of international aquaculture laws and guidelines because of their number and complexity. I don't think we need to talk about numbers. I think we need to talk about adoption of these international laws. Let's start from the first one, the Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries, which has been on since 1995. How many of the states have been able to adopt these codes? Not to talk of the recent ones on sustainable aquaculture and all that and all that. So if there's no adoption of these international laws, the governance order by the institutions which we have found to be very weak. So how will the first order, that is the practitioners, how will they use the international aquaculture laws and guidelines? So, and complexity, well, we need to break them down. Some of the laws, when you really look at them, may not, they are good laws. All the laws are good laws, but the developing countries need to adopt and adapt these laws to their situations, because there are some of these laws that have perspective that are not realities in the West African region. And so I've gone through what I have been given to present for now until we have proper written country reports. And I want to thank all the participants that have been listening. And so I will go back to the very first one, and the floor is now open for people to make contributions, because we want your opinions. Many things have been, many information and ideas have been gathered in the last 2 days that have been documented, that we also see come into this report. Some things that were overlooked even when the concept of country report was coming up. We were waiting for country structures, number of ponds, management structure, and so on. But now it has changed. When people had spoken, the different speakers have brought out different ideas, information that are quite useful and which have been noted and which will be put into this report to make it more robust and to make it more useful for us to adopt and use in the different countries. I thank you very much, and I will now wait for contributions from participants, please.
Thank you very much, Deaconess Foluke. That was a very insightful submission that you put out there. I think it would also be helpful if you could share the document with us, so that as we are all discussing, we can just be going through it. With the facility that is available on Zoom, if you look at the lower bottom part of your...
Yes, I was told not to release all the information. So what I will do now is I will quickly do cut. I will quickly do cut and paste, and then leave the red one, this one out for less. So please go on, sir, as I'm deleting some of this.
Don't worry, that will be most helpful. So as I was saying, for the purposes of order, there's the reactions button at the lower bottom part of the Zoom interface. So if you want to make a contribution, you just click on the reactions button and you raise your hand. When you raise your hand, we give you the floor, so on and so forth. So if you look at the lower bottom part of the Zoom interface, the button is there, reactions. When you click it, you can raise your hand and then we give you the floor, so on and so forth. I think the next stage is we should give the opportunity for some observations that were made on the submission that you gave. I took my little pen and paper. I have some observations of myself that I would like to ask questions about later, but I think we should set the ball rolling by making way for people who want to make clarifications, seek clarifications, I mean, or want to make a contribution to the submission that you made. So the floor is open.
Thank you very much, sir.
I think I'll start myself. One of the notes that I took was,
Hello, sir. Mr. Nestor.
Yes, sir.
This is Mr. Johnson Isheyemi from Nigeria.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to make a little contribution. Thank you so much, ma. Deaconess Foluke Ariola. I'm a PhD fisheries student from Lagos State University. My own contribution is simply on database. I don't know if we have a comprehensive database of people who are in aquaculture in most African countries, because all that has been said is based on who are we targeting in terms of making aquaculture what it should be. If we don't have the number, we don't have the contacts, then it will be difficult to pass all our suggestions, all our findings across to them. We will say it here, and it might probably end here. But if we have a very good database, we can make direct contact to these people. You know, these days, people come into aquaculture as a result of the economy in most African countries. The economy is not robust again. So somebody that has retired from the ministry, not having any idea about fish farming at all, only to hear that it's very profitable, because he has the money, will now come into aquaculture. Although some of them don't stay long because of lack of knowledge, but some do get some training from maybe some specialists or an organization that gather people together, give them some 2 weeks, 3 weeks training, and they go into the business. So we don't have a very good database, so that all that is being said in this conference can reach out to these people. Their own idea is to make money out of aquaculture. The basis and the other things that is required, they are not interested. They want to push in fingerlings into the pond, and within some months they want it to get matured and make money. So there is need for us to have a very good database at the local government level, at the state level, and at the federal level, so that we can always get to people in their localities, in their local sets, and that will go a long way in helping aquaculture in African countries, and it will boost the food production idea that we are all talking and aiming at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Well, let me give my 2 cents on what you said. I took some notes. You were talking about a comprehensive database to ensure effective communication to our target groups, if we got you right. You want us to think about how we can develop a very good, strong database where information will be available so that we can give the information directly to those who need the information, if I got you right.
Yes, sir. That was it. We spoke about that. Yes, thank you, sir. You captured it. I'm trying to also write on the screen. Any other contribution, please? Is anybody else raising his or her hand?
Not at the moment. Do we have Mr. Lanre online?
Mr. Lanre Badmos?
Mr. Lanre from WAS. Maybe he can shed some light about the database creation from the World Aquaculture Society, West Africa. He was on a moment ago.
Yes, he was on a moment ago.
Okay.
Can I come in?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Ma, for this wonderful and elaborate presentation of the challenges, policy gaps that we face in the region, and especially the last contributor who spoke about the importance of data. It's extremely important. So, but you asked a question about how can we fix all of these problems? These are not, I don't think these are all the problems. I think we are still going to have more as the conference unfolds. How can we fix this problem? The only way we can fix this problem is through good governance. Good governance in aquaculture. Good governance is not only about how other sectors of the policy life or the country life is being managed. Good governance is also, there is also something known as good governance in aquaculture. And in about 45 minutes time, we are going to be making a presentation on that, where we are going to look at the micro and macro levels of governance to see how we can use participatory governance to solve all the problems or most of the problems in aquaculture. At least we're going to give something like a theoretical framework which will help policymakers to understand what is the meaning of governance and to differentiate between what is good governance and what is exactly bad governance. So it is a very interesting presentation, and we just want to thank you, and we look forward for more inputs. And also, if you are interested, or if anybody's interested to know about how we can fix all of this, there are more presentations coming. So I just wish that all of us should just stay tuned and then deliberate on more issues ahead. Thank you.
Do we have any more contributions?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel.
Somebody is speaking.
Hi, it's Carlo Corradini here.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very, very brilliant. I'd like to ask you if your efforts for legislation are also targeted to the unification of trade laws between African countries in order to increase the trade, and if this is in the interest of African countries, because sometimes when you allow the trade between different countries, not all the countries are facilitated. And sometimes what is good for economy can be bad for food security. I would like to know your opinion about this.
I didn't quite get you, but you are asking about intra-regional collaboration and trade in aquaculture products?
Yes, exactly, especially for farmed product, because in Europe, for example, to facilitate the trade of food, we put a lot of common laws between European countries. And,
thank you very much. Okay, and please complete, please.
No. If you got it now, it's okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for this question, and that's why we have thrown open this, what the Secretariat has for now, because there are different gaps, and the three people that have spoken have said things that were not really addressed in the list that I was given to discuss. Now, yes, in Europe, within the European Union, and even between European Union and other countries, or if you speak about America, there are several laws guiding trade in aquaculture products. In the West African bloc, I am not aware, and I stand to know today that we have laws for trade in aquaculture products.
Yes, between African countries, I mean.
No, I'm not aware. Stated like that. What I know that has limited trade between us is the issue of connectivity in terms of transportation. I know that AU-IBA did some work on trade corridors in Africa for fisheries and aquaculture products, trying to identify the trade corridors, the barriers, and so on. And like somebody said yesterday, that to bring a product, I think it's feed, something about feed to Nigeria, you will spend $250 or something, and to take the same feed to another country, less than $50. So there is issue of interconnectivity between the countries. So that is making it difficult in terms of transportation. And then there is issue of, there's no regulation. You can bring your fish to Nigeria, the borders are so porous. And so any kind of product coming through all the borders, the porous borders, especially smoked fish from the northern borders. But who checks the quality? So it's not an issue. It's one of the things that World Aquaculture Society can take up, to have a regional regulation that binds even movement of aquaculture products within our region, be it the live fish, be it the smoked or the dried one. But it is a very tall order, I will tell you. But in the EU, you cannot just take your fish from one country to another. It has to come from a farm that has HCCP in place, that has a monitoring schedule in place, and that harvests in a particular form, and that processes in a particular way, that transports in a particular way. Also, America now has laws on ancillary forms to which catfish belongs. They want to know how you have grown it. They want to know how you have slaughtered it. They want to know how you have managed it, so that the health of the people is paramount. So do we have such in the West African region? So there are three questions here. What do we have as a regional bloc? Do we have regional trade and collaboration and security? So that if you are moving fish, it's not something else that is being moved. I know that in fisheries, in coastal fisheries and so on, there's great corruption, human trafficking under fisheries, movement of other things aside from fish under fisheries, even importation of fish, cars being said to be fish. So all these corrupt practices under fish and aquaculture are there. So it's a very important issue that you have mentioned that has to do with security. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, wonderfully.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carlo. And also to add to that, with the inception of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has come in now, it is breaking or removing the economic barriers, but not the barriers that has to do with proper fish health and the science that comes with it. It's just an economic affair where they are opening up the borders so that if catfish is harvested in Abidjan, by evening time it could be in Lagos. I think that is what it is seeking to promote, just business. But as to the protocols that has to do with fish health, I don't think there's any such facility in place.
Thank you, sir. Even under the, speaking about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, I think at the beginning of it now, since it's just starting out, we need to make moves as professionals in the aquaculture sector to ensure that we are not left out in the scheme of things. Why I'm saying this is when you look at all these agreements and treaties, even looking at the blue economy, as it's been understood in the African state, there's no mention of fisheries and aquaculture on a significant level. That is the people who live in the water environment, the blue economy, the blue water who live in around it, who are the people that is most affected by any activity in water. And so with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, how are we going to manage it? Not that it becomes, it opens the door for dumping on the African countries from one country to move it to another, or the issues are complex. And we have to be really careful in embracing that trade agreement. How is fisheries and aquaculture being protected on the larger scale?
Thank you very much. In Ghana, for example, the protocols of the AFTA allows for member states to bring certain things up for exemption. So in Ghana, people who are into the business of producing poultry feed are enjoying exemptions, so tax-free on things that they use, the ingredients they use for producing poultry feed. But those who are producing feed for fish in Ghana are not enjoying those tax holidays or tax reliefs. So I think it's something that we must all look at. Provision has been made for poultry, but they've left the fish feed producers out. And it's something that we are trying to discuss with government to adjust for us.
Because this is what happens when anything in agriculture comes up. Agriculture is taken care of, plants, livestock is taken care of, fisheries is left. And then it gets to a state that even livestock, we now want to subsume fisheries under livestock just to carry fisheries along. And I think this has gone on for too long, and it's something that we need to face and have a voice. We all need to come together. We are professionals in this field, and we must defend what we know, what we have learned, and what we are practicing.
Well noted. Was there any other person who would like to make a contribution or an observation or a question, perhaps?
Whatever is there, if there's any gap that you will want, let's just have it, or you can put it on the chat room, because
Okay.
we are looking for more and more information so that when this is out there, okay, we have some information. Can we bring up? We have some things on the chat. Can I quickly run through?
Yes.
I would like to and way forward. I wish the role and interest of private sector in profile is not underrated. Thank you very much for this. Because what we have not put in private sector participation. Private sector, somebody brought it in under the chat room. Private sector participation, that we should not be underrated. And then I don't want to populate, but as you mentioned, many guidelines do not exist. This is from FAO. Many guidelines do not exist. One report that could be of use is as it collates as many FAO and non-FAO existing guidelines for a wide range of policy. So we have a table that we can log in, is there on the chart. Thank you to Mr. Dabadi from FAO giving us a link. Please, can you look at the chart? There's a link where there's a report that of guidelines that exist in aquaculture, and I hope the Secretariat has taken note of that. So somebody spoke about aquaculture education training in university, and then in speaking about extension service, I concentrated on private extension, whereas there should on government extension services. We could, in the aquaculture sector, develop private extension services that will be paid for by the operators. Minimal cost is one way to look at. And then another site is being shared, nakada.wordpress.com, and then thank you. Also, we are to register to view another session. Please, the chat room has so many interesting things that have been shared with us. COVID-19 in Ghana, tilapia price trend in Ghana. Okay, I have enlarged the thing. Please, there are so many things. Please go to the chat room and go through the different things. There are information there that are useful, that I want us to. Yes, sorry, I don't have it. I just got the document. It wasn't on PowerPoint because I just was given the red part to present, and it was too late to start putting it on PowerPoint. Please, can we go through? We will see so many useful things. I understand my profile has not been given. I'm Foluke Areola, former National President, Fisheries Society of Nigeria, and former Director of Fisheries in Nigeria. And I belong to many associations in Nigeria under aquaculture, under fisheries, and I'm practicing fisheries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam. Your participation in today's event has been very, 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 very insightful. We would like to use this opportunity to encourage all those who have been participating actively in the conference to please take part in the remaining sessions. So for us not to eat into the time of the next session, I would like to thank all of you for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
Bye now.
Bye.
U.S. soybean growers founded the World Initiative for Soy in Human Health, or WISH, as a program